Good evening, everybody. Matt Derrick with Chiefs Digest here. 7:02, Brandon. So, see, I am on time, and I had my nap this afternoon. So, this is going to be a lively one, hopefully, tonight. Hopefully, everybody's got some questions that they can bring in, and we'll have a good old time this evening. Should be a pretty good take. I mean, hopefully, everybody's in a pretty good mood after you get Hollywood Brown into Chiefs Kingdom and some other moves. I think this team is in pretty good shape right now for where it's been in free agency and what they wanted to get accomplished. There's been a lot of check boxes, so interested to see what your questions are. I know I expect a lot of questions about L'Jarius Sneed, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later when Nick comes in too, and have Nick's take on what he thinks about the L'Jarius Sneed situation. But just for my 2 cents, and I've been kind of talking about this today, so if you've heard me elsewhere, might be repetitive, but there's a difference between what we know and what we believe with the L'Jarius Sneed situation, and the reality of what we know is really pretty short. I mean, we know that the Chiefs have franchise tagged him. That's obvious. We know that the Chiefs and Brett Veach, Andy Reid have said they'd love to have L'Jarius Sneed back in Kansas City. We know L'Jarius Sneed has said he wants to stay in Kansas City. And from what we know, that's really it, because the rest of what we've got is, I would say, informed speculation, and we've got a lot of narratives that are being portrayed from different places, but nothing that we really have hardcore. And, as far as, me as a journalist being able to say, hey, this person is willing to put their name to this, and much less having two people willing to say something, they're going to put their name to this. I mean, what we've got is, like I said, a lot of informed speculation and a lot of belief about what's going on. And in that area, it's pretty simple. I mean, we believe that L'Jarius Sneed's asking price right now is too high. We believe that the Chiefs have been somewhat flexible in what they're asking for as far as return and compensation. I believe, at least from what I've been told and what I understand, that the Chiefs are somewhat flexible in their belief going forward as far as their plan and how they want to proceed with L'Jarius Sneed. Could they play could they keep L'Jarius on the franchise tag this year? Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, I don't think it's a great possibility, but it's something for which Brett Veach has prepared as a potential eventuality. It's not necessarily what they want to happen. I mean, but there's so many moving parts to this. I mean, especially when it comes to the Chiefs and how they fit everything in and how other teams are getting involved. And, absolutely a big part of all of this is the fact that if L'Jarius Sneed was 24, 25 years old, we wouldn't be having heard hardly any of these conversations. If he was 24 years old, I mean, the Chiefs would probably have just gone ahead and signed him to a $76 million 4-year deal, just like the Bears did with Jalen Johnson, and this would have been over with. They probably would have gone over that. But he's not. He's 27. He's going to be 28 in January. And that's the holdup. And between that and the knee, which you're now getting, more people talking about. I've been hearing about the knee being a L'Jarius Sneed issue, honestly, going back to the Super Bowl against Philadelphia. That was from people I was talking with and during that Super Bowl in Arizona about, hey, what were going to be the complications with L'Jarius Sneed's free agent status, and a big part of it was going to be that knee. The teams were just concerned about it and what the medical situation was there. So now you're getting to hear a little bit more talk about that and the age factor being for L'Jarius. And and there's certainly a jigsaw problem too that the Chiefs have, because while they would love to, I believe, keep L'Jarius even beyond one season, there's issues in that. One, they can't do it at $20+ million. And a big part of that is because at some point they're going to have to pay Trent McDuffie that money. And they'd rather pay it to Trent because he is going to be younger. He is going to be one of those players that's, 25 years old when they're giving him a long-term deal. So that's more advantageous than 27. The Chiefs have to fit other people into that jigsaw puzzle too. It's not all about 24. It's about 25 and 26 and 27. That's the things that they have to figure out. And even though I know people love to joke, cap isn't real, it is real. And it gets even more real when you hand out contracts like you've got the Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes, and you got other people that you want to keep too. So that's what's making this so difficult. I mean, obviously, L'Jarius has a price that he wants, and I don't begrudge him of that. I would be trying to get as much as I could if I was L'Jarius. So I don't begrudge him. I do think that if he wants a long-term contract, whether it's in Kansas City or it's elsewhere, I don't think it's going to be at north of $20 million. I think it's going to have to come down from that. So if he wants a long-term deal, I think he's going to have to move on price. All indications are the Chiefs have done that they've kind of accepted what they're going to get. I still don't think they should just give away L'Jarius Sneed, and there is an option. I mean, they certainly have the option to remove the franchise tag. There's nothing guaranteed about that. I mean, they can remove the franchise tag and make L'Jarius Sneed a free agent at any time. I don't get the sense that they want to do that. I mean, I do feel like that, hey, as a fallback option, they would like to keep him at that franchise rate of 19.8 for 2024 as a last resort. I mean, they'd love to have him back trying to go for that three-peat. They just can't necessarily afford his price for 3 or 4 years. I joked about this. It's kind of half serious, and I think I brought Nick around to it. But of course, it would have to be guaranteed. But I'm like almost like a compromise. If the Chiefs gave L'Jarius, say, 2 years, $36 million guaranteed, that would have to be the deal. It had to be guaranteed. Let him hit free agency again at 29 rather than 30 or 31. I don't know if he'd go for that. I don't know if the Chiefs would go for that. I mean, I think that's something that honestly should be on the table. Don't know that it will be. And now we're starting to get narratives out of other teams as far as, what's the Colts are doing, where Tennessee is at, other teams, Minnesota's been mentioned, Vegas has been mentioned, Arizona. I've heard the Washington Commanders mentioned. I mean, and they've got some cap room. So at least some of these teams do make sense from that standpoint. But it's once again, I mean, we have not yet seen evidence that there's a team out there willing to give L'Jarius Sneed $20 million. And until he does, I just don't know that the market's going to move. So let's see what happens. But that's my 2 cents. I'm sure there'll be some more questions, and if you have anything specific that we haven't addressed with L'Jarius, and I'll go ahead and bring up Scott's here. Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate you supporting the channel. That's very kind of you. Reports have Sneed seeking top cornerback money with his demands. Does that make Sneed untradeable and force the Chiefs to play him on the tag? His money is locked. Now remember, I mean, I kind of saying a few minutes ago, the money is not guaranteed with the franchise tag until L'Jarius signs it. So the Chiefs can pull the tag if they wanted to and just make him straight up a free agent. Now, I see no reason why they would do that or want to do that, because obviously then they would lose the trade leverage of being able to choose where he goes and get compensation back. That's not just a end of a 3rd round pick next year, and a pick that you might not even get if you sign some free agents next year. That's the way the math sometimes works on that compensation formula. So I don't think it makes him untradeable. Well, and it does in a way. I mean, because if no team is literally willing to pay him that money, then he is untradeable. And then it comes down to, whether L'Jarius, because, I mean, it's up to L'Jarius to, 1, sign that tag, and then 2, play under it. And I think, once again, I mean, I've never seen a case of a player sitting out with outside the franchise tag and it going well for them. So I can't imagine that should be or will be a scenario that L'Jarius and his agent considers. It absolutely shouldn't, because that's just a disaster. But that is one of the options. Chiefs pay him. If he signs the $19.8 million tag, that does then become guaranteed and locked in. Chiefs right now have $15 million in cap space without him. Now, that's not all the money in the world. I mean, because remember, the top 51 contracts are the only thing that counts right now. So you got two more active roster players you got to put there. You've got your draft class that you need to sign that's actually going to replace some of those contracts. You've got to count practice squad on there too. You're going to get players hurt on injured reserve. They count against the cap. And Brett Veach likes to usually have between $5 and $8 million under the cap going into the season. So and the fact that the Chiefs, hey, they still might want to sign a couple of free agents, and there is some places that they can free up some cap space if they wanted to restructure another contract or two, similar to what they did with Mahomes. So there's options there. But a big part, and once again, I mean, we're getting almost a repeat of last year in the Chris Jones standoff, is that, yeah, the Chiefs could afford to keep Chris Jones under that salary cap number last year. They didn't want to, because if they could have worked out the long-term extension with him last summer, they could have gone out and put that money into the receiver room. They could have gone out and gotten a DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they could have gone out and gotten a veteran to add to that room. But the Jones contract situation made it impossible for them. They're going to have that same problem now, too. I mean, if there's a big name out there that they really want to squeeze in, it's going to be difficult to do and justify without addressing L'Jarius in some way. And Scott, I mean, I do. I think the bottom line is that if there's going to be any movement with L'Jarius, it's going to have to be with contract demands. I mean, my fear all along for him was going to be that with his age and with that knee situation, even if it hasn't cost him a lot of games, it's just got teams concerned. Those two factors were going to make it very, very difficult for him to get the value of money that he wanted in the contract, and for the Chiefs to get back what they hoped for. I mean, now you're kind of looking at it that if L'Jarius does get paid, and I don't think he's going to get paid $20 million, but if he does get a contract long term, Chiefs might not get back more than a third, and and that's a compromise on their side. It's not great. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think that here's the ultimate thing, is that the Chiefs have made the long term calculation that they would rather have Trent McDuffie, some combination of Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, and Trey Smith, than have L'Jarius Sneed long term beyond this year. And I can't necessarily disagree with that, because the numbers would say that that's the right decision. I mean, it's a hard emotional decision, because L'Jarius has done nothing but play his behind off for you and has done a great job and very coachable. Obviously, he's done everything for this team possible. But from a business standpoint, at his age, giving a cornerback that kind of money, it's not a good plan. So, we'll see what happens. Like I said, if there's some new angles and questions on the L'Jarius angle that comes up tonight, I'll bring them up, and certainly I want to bring it up once with Nick to kind of get his take on where he's at right now with things. But that's where I see it, Scott. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that yes, that L'Jarius is going to have to come off his numbers if he does want to get a contract and he wants to get a trade done. If he wants to stay in Kansas City, same thing. I mean, he's going to have to just lower his number. But the other problem is I'm just not sold that the Chiefs, are interested in a 3 or a 4 year deal, because they're going to want to sign Trent McDuffie and some other guys that are younger than L'Jarius. So it's a complicated jigsaw puzzle for sure. There is no doubt about it. Sharon, interesting chat between myself and Ryan Tracy over at RGR tonight. Yep, on Locked On Chiefs. Enjoy hearing Matt and Nick talk about moving down, and I'll bring that up with Nick too. Higher number, always weird to me that better is not up in the draft to accumulate prospects. I mean, there's so many, once again, there's a lot of moving parts of this too. And L'Jarius is a part of that, because I mean, the Chiefs do have 7 draft picks right now. They don't have a 6th, but they do have 2 5ths and a 7th. So they've got that, and that's a decent amount. I mean, you want 7 draft picks, and that's actually, by having 2 5ths and not a 6th, you actually have better than what you were allotted. So in a way that the Chiefs are actually maybe a slightly smidge better situation than they would normally be. But Brett Veach always wants more draft picks, and he wants to be able to maneuver around the board. I think that when you're talking about 32 and moving up or moving down from that spot in the first round, I think it's going to be really difficult. And, and I'm trying to remember if Nick and I talked about this on either the podcast or in the Q&A last week. But, I mean, I'm working under the assumption, and I think Nick is too, that the Chiefs are going to find it very, very difficult to move up in the first round, especially with an AFC team. Because we've seen it. I mean, the Steelers made it pretty clear, with Deontay Johnson, that they didn't want to send him to an AFC team, and the Chiefs were chief amongst that. So I think it's going to be difficult for the Chiefs to move up with an AFC team. So right there, that alone wipes out 21. that you could go to for sure. There's some teams, and that's the great thing is that, there's nothing but NFC teams drafting from 22 to 27. So there's actually a window there where I think that the Chiefs could potentially move. Now, whether some of those teams will want to trade with the Chiefs, so the Eagles, the Vikings, the Cowboys wouldn't trade with the Chiefs last year because they were afraid the Chiefs were going to trade up and draft a player that they wanted. So they wouldn't. The Packers, the Buccaneers, and the Cardinals are all in that list there before you get to Buffalo, who's not trading again with the Chiefs in the first round. I'd be stunned if that happened. So if the Chiefs wanted to move up, there's a possibility there. Now, it's going to cost you a little bit, which means it would be taking away some of that flexibility that the Chiefs have with their 7 picks this year. It would take you a couple of picks to move up from 32 to one of those spots. And once again, if you're Brett Veach, you're only going to do that if there's a player that you've got a first round grade on that's fallen. And, Brett usually tells us that he's got a first round grade in his staff between like 15 to 20 players. So that's, that's what would have to happen. So, in the middle of talking about this, here's Nick. So Nick's coming in. So now we can get his expert opinion as well. Nick, how are you? I'm trying to adjust my microphone so I can actually hear you. My headphones are, and I see why you are muted, but I'm unmuting you. No, you've chosen to mute yourself, Nick. So I can't unmute you.
How about now?
Now we're cooking the game.
Hi. You hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
This is it's like a play school's first podcast set.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what we are.
Yeah, man. It's actually really nice.
I was just talking about Sharon's question because I couldn't remember if we talked about it actually on air or just between us, but talking about the Chiefs, if they wanted to move up, not being able to see an AFC team willing to move up with them, to accommodate them, that AFC teams are probably going to be very suspicious of the Chiefs trying to move up. But there might be some NFC teams that will play ball.
I mean, look, the first part of it is the Chiefs don't really have enough to move up from the 2024 draft picks that they have. So that's where Legarius Sneed potentially came into play. Or if you were going to trade somebody, you ideally were hoping for additional draft assets that could allow you to move up into anywhere from 15 to 24, 25, whatever you may need. Because if you're wanting a tackle, I think you're going to have to be in the top 20. And if you're wanting a wide receiver, well, if there's a specific wide receiver you're wanting, I'm concerned most of them are going to be gone by 22 to 24. So, yeah, somebody like the Eagles at 22 would be who you'd ideally be trying to trade with. But I just don't think they have enough assets right now to be able to get that done. So you're having to pull into the 2025 pool at that point and try to use some of those picks to give you enough ammo to move up. But, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are just in a spot where there's other teams out there that have additional seconds and thirds. And, like, those are kind of I think the second-round picks are really kind of – those are going to be really, really valuable this year with all the talent that's there in the top 50 to 70 range. So the more second round, even potentially third round picks you have, the better off I think you can fill out your roster for the most part.
And that's really the key is that, I mean, we can talk about this and come up with a lot of scenarios, but one of the things that has to happen is that your player has to fall. And, and obviously Chiefs had that happen with Trent McDuffie. He fell to a spot where, hey, wait a minute, this is a spot where this is a player we want. We have the resources to go get that player. You're right. I mean, with the Chiefs currency, I think there's only so far that they can move up, but it's one of those things that it's how the draft board unfolds, because last year, I mean, there were some defensive linemen at the end of the draft that the Chiefs were interested in that were not just Felix Anudike-Uzomah. They just couldn't get the trade partner together with them to allow them to move up and maybe get a different player that they wanted. The same thing conceivably could happen this year. I mean, when you're talking about the premium positions that the Chiefs would be interested in, wide receiver, left tackle, I'm not going to cross off edge rusher as being one of those positions if a top 15 player falls. But we know, I mean, last year we saw runs at positions that can happen where, and in this draft, it might happen for sure. I mean, I got people telling me that there could be 6 tackles taken in the first round. Wide receivers, there could be a run on them. And all of a sudden, now are you in the end of the, are you at 27, 28, and all of a sudden like the second and third best edge rushers are on the board? I mean, those things can happen. It's just that you're right. If you don't get L'Jarius Sneed's resolved, and I'm getting more pessimistic about what they can get in return for Sneed. But if you don't have that resolved, it certainly limits you from probably being able to move up very far in the first round.
Yeah, no, you're gonna need more picks if you're trying to move up in the first round. Otherwise, you're only getting 2 to 3 players in the draft, especially if you're trying to move up in the first. Or if there's not somebody you want at 32, now that the draft's not in Kansas City, you can trade back and maybe pick up an additional third or pick up an additional fourth, depending on how far back you end up going. But yeah, I think those second round picks are going to be pretty. I think those are going to be pretty coveted this year.
Yes, indeed. And I'm glad. Hey, first of all, I'm glad to see some new people on the live stream. It's great to see some new faces in there and getting some questions in. I'm glad that.
Hope you like my t-shirt.
Nick's t-shirt game is always spot on. And Brandon, glad that you appreciate the fact that I was here, almost on time. So see, we got things going here. Let's go to Darren. Do you know how much cap space is left? Coming up with around 4.5 million once the draft class is signed. I think it might be a little better than that. I know I think Spotrac and Over the Cap right now have it maybe around 14 or 15. Nick, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, but it didn't have Brown in it at the time, and it
didn't have Brown, so that might be what would get you down.
Naughty, and I don't know if it had Wharton in there and some of the guys they've recently signed, because Brown just signed yesterday. So once it goes through the system, then that'll drop down to where I think it's rough estimate. I'm just mentally thinking they're probably at below 7 million personally.
And so Scott, yeah, I mean, Darren, excuse me, looking at two different screens there. You're right. Yeah, that probably would, with Brown calculated in, would probably bring it down, and with the draft class, probly a little under.
Over the Cap's got it at 7.6 now with Brown added on to it.
There you go. Well, let's see. Okay, I know the NFLPA has not yet started generating their report for 2024.
Yeah, no, I've been checking every day, and I'm like, they're not there yet.
I need to shoot off an email to my guy, see if we can't get that updated.
And Naughty's not on this one yet on Over the Cap. Wharton is, but Naughty is not, and Winchester's on it as well. So.
And that's why, I mean, that cap number is deceptive. I mean, once you see it, especially now you see the Brown number in there and you see the 7 million, like I was saying, before you got here, Nick, once you calculate in the full 53, the practice squad, injured reserve, the rookie class, the Chiefs still don't have any wiggle room. So resolving Jarius's 19.8, it's a big part of it. They've got some restructures that they could do, obviously, as well. Some of them are ones that would be painful to do, so I'm not sure that they want to touch them, but they've got a handful that they could squeeze a few million out here and there, but it doesn't mean that they want to do that. And, and part of the cost of that too is when you do that, it costs you cash now, which, is a factor for teams. I mean, the Chiefs we've talked about before, I mean, they usually like to spend their cash number around what the cap number is. They want to spend about $255 million this year. They don't want to spend $300 million. So we'll see if that happens. Maybe they will be willing to do it this year, to go for the three-peat. But yeah, the cap situation is not super fantastic, Nick.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have enough talented players that can make over 20 million per year. So that's kind of where they're at, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The names may change about who gets that 20 million over the next couple of years, but I think this is just kind of the situation the Chiefs are always going to be in, because with Mahomes' cap number on a given year, that's the equivalent of 2-star players, maybe, or maybe 3 potentially. In a given year, what his cap number is. So, I mean, that takes up that part of it. But you're willing to do that because it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's always going to give you a shot to win a Super Bowl. And then you got to protect him. So normally 2 of your offensive linemen are going to make around that. And then with Chris Jones getting the money he is, that took $30 million away from next year's cap for the most part, because the Chiefs were like almost $80 million projected if the cap stayed at 255, and now they're already down to 40 something, and that's going to get eaten up whenever they decide what they're going to do with Creed, what they're going to do with Trey Smith, Harrison Butker, Justin Reed, handful of other guys that are going to be available for new contracts, Charles Omenihu. So that cap space is going to go away pretty quick. So that's where the Chiefs are at a point now where to continue to extend this window, this dynasty window, as long as they want, they need as many draft picks as they can get every year, whether it's to move up to get impact players or to be able to have enough to be cost control to continue to maintain a certain level roster-wise. But that also means that the scouting department's hitting on a lot of those picks for it to happen, because if they have a bad year like 2018, then, they're not going to do as well, and they're not going to have some of those strong rosters that they potentially need on a regular basis.
Here's kind of a crazy question to think about, Nick. When do you think will be the first year, and this is kind of a greedy looking forward question, that Patrick Mahomes will win a Super Bowl with someone that was not on the team for the first one in 2019?
Let's see, because that'll be Winchester, Jones, Kelsey for sure.
Butker is the only one that might be the problem. Butker could be around for a while.
Yeah, Butker. Boy, I don't know.
Maybe he won't. Maybe Mahomes will never win a ring without one of those guys on the team.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question, and I hope we never have to find out, Matt.
Hey, if anybody wants a hazard to guess in the chat, feel free to show us a stab, or you just want to say, we want to fathom it. Brandon's got a question that I was expecting tonight, so I'm glad somebody brought it up. What is your top need for the team now that they've got Hollywood? Is wide receiver still the top need? What's your top need, Nick?
No, I mean, that and left tackle are going to be the two biggest ones, and then after that, it's whatever you want to add on the defensive line, whether it's a DN or D tackle. I mean, that's where most of that stuff's going to be at this point, because the more receivers you add, the more you alleviate what you need at tight end or potentially replace Travis Kelce down the road. And I don't think this tight end class is going to be terribly strong after the first couple picks to be able to kind of find that heir apparent. So for the most part, I mean, that's where all that combined, you ideally need to fill all those spots. And then you're still going to need to potentially find a veteran running back that you can pair with Pacheco. So, I mean, there's still a lot that needs to be done. They just don't have the cap room to get it done right now. And that's part of the reason Mike Williams is probably a New York Jet now.
Yeah, that one hurt. That one I think would have been a really good addition. But you know what? Can't begrudge Mike Williams getting the money, and he certainly was not going to get $15 million for 1 year from Kansas City. So,
well, and the kicker of it is him and Hollywood Brown sharing the same agent. The agent already knew the situation cap-wise for the Chiefs. So if something didn't get done Sneed-wise, which it didn't, then he wouldn't. I don't think he was going to wait around for his client to get a new deal if a really good opportunity came up. And for him, that Jets one did. And the Jets are all in. And, I don't think things are going to go well for the New York Jets, personally. I think it's going to be another sinking ship year, but we'll find out.
It feels like it. I mean, that feels like a 5-12 situation coming on, but
yeah.
I feel like the same. I mean, yes, I think you want another wide receiver. I think you'd like some competition at left tackle. Yes, I'm still big on some defensive. I would favor specifically the edge. I think you definitely need some depth there. I'm okay. I mean, I would not be surprised if the Chiefs, and we're just talking about free agency. I wouldn't be surprised if some other needs that the Chiefs address in the draft, interior offensive line, running back. I mean, I think there's some other spots, but when you're just talking about free agents, I mean, yeah, I would say competition at left tackle, just the depth at defensive end. I still think another wide receiver would be a good shot to have. And then honestly, bargains, whomever's out there that, has fallen through the cracks a la Drew Tranquil and is still sitting out there. I mean, that's where Brett Veach has had a lot of success. So to me, it's not about any specific need, but if you see a good football player out there, sign them. I mean, especially they don't cost very much. So I'm not going to turn down anybody, Nick, that can play football just because I think I've got enough players there. Yeah. If there's somebody who's good, I'll sign them. So.
Yeah.
Darren will say that Sneed will most definitely hold out. How concerning is that? I mean, not huge for me. I don't know about you, Nick.
I mean, first he's got to sign the tag, because until he signs the tag, he doesn't have to show up or report for anything. Because he's not considered under contract with the team. So, I mean, all it does is just lock in that's the money he gets for the year. So until that happens, nothing really matters, and he can sign that whenever the heck he wants up until week 8. So
right
for him, it would be no different than when he didn't practice in training camp last year. So, I mean,
exactly. I mean, he and Chris Jones made the ludicrousy of needing training camp. Who needs it?
No, there's a lot of players that need it.
There are a lot of players that need it, but apparently L'Jarius Sneed's not one of them. So not huge, but yeah, I mean, it's something. Chiefs don't want that situation. So let's see what happens. This one, I was expecting this question, Nick, and I should be better prepared for it. You were probably better prepared for it than I am, but because I was just talking about it. Who are the free agents out there that could fit with the Chiefs with the first couple of waves of free agency over? And yeah, I mean, now we're starting to see, kind of other guys getting picked up. I mean, I thought Charlie Heck might end up in Kansas City. I see he's sticking around in Houston, but so there's a depth piece at left tackle you're not going to get.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy. He's the defensive end out of Michigan. His name is Mike Dana. I think he'd be a pretty ideal pickup. But again, like I know everybody wants to continue to add to the roster and everything, but I mean, with them probably being less than $7 million in cap at this point, which depending on Noddy's deal is probably going to be about $5 million. There's not a lot there wiggle room to work with to be able to get a guy for more than vet minimum. And any player still in the market's trying to get something that either has a worth up to whenever they get signed or something of that nature. So, I mean, yeah, from a defensive end perspective, you're trying to see if you can get maybe Mike Dana back here for the most part. I'm looking through the list as we speak. Dwayne Smoot would be another guy that I'd be intrigued by because he worked with Joe Cullen before. And then, I mean, because what Chase Young got today from the Saints, that was a gross overpay for. And the Saints are gonna. I would like to say the Saints are gonna regret it, but Saints made a lot of awful decisions over the past 4 to 5 years. Ever since Drew Brees and Sean Payton have left, they've just made nothing but awful decisions, salary cap wise, and keep kicking the can down the road. So that's my little rant on the Saints. Matt, if you want to hop in, go ahead because I'm looking through the list though.
Well, and you make a good point, and Mike Dana being the poster child of this. I mean, but Brett Veach pretty much laid out their strategy to a degree at the combine when he told us that, hey, his plan was to probably let a lot of their guys test free agency and see where they were after the first few waves. I mean, I think and even like a guy like Mike Dana, I mean, I think that Brett Veach is fine waiting. I mean, they would absolutely take him back in a heartbeat, but if they need to wait a little bit longer for that price to come down, the asking price to come down, I think he's willing to do that. And they've done that with quite a few guys because, Noddy and Wharton's contracts aren't, bank busters or anything. I mean, I know Mike Edwards has got a visit scheduled coming up, so maybe he's going with another team. But there's a lot of guys that are still out there that I think absolutely are still possible of returning back to Kansas City, and that's Dan is one of them. Cole Hardman absolutely is on that list. So we'll see what happens. But, the Chiefs aren't done bringing back their own guys. There could be a few. But I just remain intrigued, Nick, that, at some of the positions of need. I mean, there's still some, edge rushers out there. I mean, they're older, but there's still some interesting names. And there's even still that safety depth because there's so many good safeties on the market this year. And none of them were getting paid for the most part. So I'm not saying Jamal Adams is going to come in and, play a number 3 safety role for the Chiefs, but there might be some decent safeties out there that would.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still going through it now. Isaiah Simmons is another guy I'd kind of be intrigued to see depth-wise what he could do, what he would want number-wise, if he could fill potentially part of that Willie Gay role that the Chiefs needed. So, I mean, that's another one that I'm looking through this list here that would intrigue me. Let's see. I'm going to go through offensive line here in a second. Center wise, rotating through that right now. Yeah, center wise, there's really not a lot there. I'm gonna go tackle real quick. And I wasn't really big on Becton from the Jets, but I mean, if you can get a flyer on him for a 1-year deal, Mekhi Becton, the former first-round pick of the Jets,
Yeah.
I mean, size-wise, he's awesome. You would just have to see if Andy Heck kind of feels like he can work with him and turn him into something more than he was in New York. I mean, that's not bad to take a flyer on to kind of, but that's you consulting with the offensive line coach to see if he does or doesn't think he is capable of it. And then I think I got to see if there was a guy I liked from the Texans.
J.K. Dobbins is still out there.
Yeah, running back wise, I mean, it'd obviously be on a prove it deal, but yeah, no, that would be another one kind of on a prove it deal that would be intriguing in my book. But I mean, no, you're at the point now where anybody you're getting for something vet minimum, likely to be earned incentives, and you just kind of work for the best on that one.
Yeah. This is a question that I'm kind of interested in. Maybe it's more so because it's an inside baseball kind of thing for our business. But why would Adam Schefter say on Pat McAfee's show that the Chiefs and Colts haven't talked in regards to Sneed? It's pretty obvious they were talking. Too many people reported it. Weird. This is one of those things. I mean, it's like it's an Obi-Wan Kenobi Yoda kind of thing, Nick. I mean, everything can be true from a certain point of view. Because if you were to say, hey, that Chris Ballard and Brett Veach haven't talked about L'Jarius Sneed, that's entirely possible. But have other people in the Colts talk to the Chiefs about something? Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean, and sometimes reporters get told what a team wants them to know. And sometimes you get that narrative. And sometimes you get bit by bad information. Sometimes, I mean, I've been in that spot too, where I've been told something that didn't prove out to be true in the long run. I mean, I'll give you a great example. I mean, I had the story this year with, that it was very unlikely. And now, luckily, I protected myself enough because of my reporting, because nobody told me that, Jerick McKinnon wasn't going to play again in 2023. They just said it was very unlikely. So luckily, that's how I reported, Jerick McKinnon's injury. But, you get told things that, get taken a certain way. So Adam Schefter leaning pretty hard on, the Chiefs and Colts. And, and now, hey, there's 13 different narratives going out there about, how much the Chiefs and Colts talked and how interested they were and what they were talking about. That's just kind of free agency in a nutshell to me, Nick. I mean, there's probably a story like this with every single year. It just doesn't always impact your team. Sometimes it's a story involving another player and another team doesn't go around. But this is just, to me, I mean, it's the water cooler buzz nature of the NFL and what gets reported sometimes. And sometimes, reporters do get used to deliver information.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at this twofold. The first fold is maybe the Colts didn't directly talk to the Chiefs. Maybe they talked to L'Jarius Sneed's agent. By definition, that technically wouldn't be the Chiefs if that were the case.
Correct.
Maybe the agent is the person in between delivering the message if they're trying to pull a technical stunt, which they might be. Then the other part of it could be Colts don't want it out at this point. The Colts don't want it out there that they're that interested in him, because then they get concerned that somebody else is going to come in and be able to take him. So I know a lot of people are saying, well, that's already out there everywhere. Yeah, you're right. But that isn't going to stop them from going to somebody nationally who they think can reach a mass audience at one moment and just completely wipe away the 15 other messages. And they think that that'll be the trick that gets it done. Is that realistic? Who the heck knows? But that's the world some of them live in.
Doesn't mean they don't try it. Exactly.
Yeah. That's just how they roll sometimes. So, I mean, like so am I stunned that got put out there? No. But am I stunned that a favor's coming down the road for carrying that water? Yeah, it's going to. So you won't be surprised when some maybe Colts news comes out down the road and that individual is the one who has it. I'm just saying that's just the way that works whenever the national reporters are going to get over the local guys. That's just a part of the world that we live in.
And that's why I go back to, I said this before you got here, Nick, but I'll lean on it again.
Yeah.
Always remember, to differentiate between what you know and what you believe, because we hear a lot of stuff during free agency and very little of it do we know. A lot of it is just what we believe because somebody has said it. It might be informed speculation. Sometimes it's going to be uninformed speculation, but a lot of the talk that you get, and especially right now, a lot of the talk about L'Jarius is that it's speculation or belief or assumptions. It's definitely not what we know because we only really know about three things until someone attaches their name to something to say it. Then from a journalistic standpoint, it doesn't have a whole lot of value. Now it's our business, Nick, so we run on it. So I'm not necessarily happy about it. I know I'm old man that yells at cloud, but sometimes you just have to differentiate between what we know and what we suspect. And right now, clouds are a big problem.
All right.
Sharon, any concerns about Hollywood's Liz Frank injury and other recurrent sprains to the right foot? I'll admit, Nick, I do have a little concerns that he's had the foot injury the last couple of years. That's a problem for a receiver to have a foot injury. I think I would be cautiously optimistic and it not be a huge issue just because of the price and the good deal that was. And you're obviously hoping that, hey, an entire offseason, take care of it, that he's going to be in pretty good shape. But I think you probably have to be just a little bit concerned, right, Nick?
Either way, you draft behind him to have somebody that can move in to the spot if that does occur. And either way, they signed him, so they feel comfortable with it. And they're willing to potentially deal with it after doing a physical to check everything out. So, we can be concerned about every single player on the roster. We can be concerned about every single contingency that needs or doesn't happen. That's why I put the long list of team needs that I do that almost includes every single position imaginable. Just because you look at every single option that's going to put the most successful roster out there for you to try to repeat as a Super Bowl champion for the current third consecutive time. So, I don't know. You can come up with all the problems in the world you want to be nervous about, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's just, you just hope for the best and things are going to go the way they're going to go.
There you go. That is true. Brandon Carrington Harrison on 610 said that the Chiefs have the best free agent wide receiver signing. Do you agree? I'm tempted to say yes, Nick. Just because I think that the signing of Hollywood was, I think, really good value without a huge amount of risk. And I think that there were some really bad free agent wide receiver signings out there.
Well, to start out, there wasn't exactly a lot in free agency to begin with. So at that point, that's going to make a huge difference. So, you only have a couple to choose from to begin with. So, is it the best value signing? Yes, with the expectation of him being a former first-round pick and having the speed that he does in the Chiefs system. Yeah, you can definitely say that. At the end of the day, though, we'll see how things work out over the next couple of years because even the teams all have projections of what they think somebody's going to be and what they can be. And if they were always right, they wouldn't still have to go into free agency. I'm just saying.
I will say I have no problems putting my name next to this when the Titans will, if they don't regret the Calvin Ridley signing at some point, it's simply because they're not smart enough to regret the Calvin Ridley signing.
Or the staff's not there anymore.
Yeah. I'll go out on a limb and say there's a really good chance that Darnell Mooney and Gabe Davis never play a playoff game. But that's just me being harsh on Jacksonville. But I don't think, that was more money than both those. I was interested in both those receivers coming to Kansas City and would have endorsed those receivers to come into Kansas City, not for the $13 million a year that they got. So,
right.
Curtis Samuel, I like him. I want to say $8 million is a pretty decent deal. So I'd listen to it, but I still think, I think Hollywood's a better fit for the Chiefs than maybe Curtis Samuel is for Buffalo. Although Buffalo needs somebody to catch the football, so and he doesn't. I don't think he gets as angry as Stephon Diggs does. So, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
KC Chiefs, thank you for the kind words. I do not have another book in the works right now. I will say I do have a couple of ideas percolating, and one of them would have the Dynasty title in it. So cross your fingers, and maybe that will happen down the road here pretty soon. We'll see what happens. But I appreciate you asking, and thanks again for the kind words. Here's one for you from another new viewer. Pono, why don't they make a move for Jadeveon Clowney? Would he be on your list, Nick, of one of those guys that's out there?
They're not gonna have the money to get him. Like, that guy's going for 10 to 12 a year. Like, they're not gonna have the money right now to get that done. And I
don't disagree. I'm just not sure that he should go for that kind of money.
I'm just telling you, that's what he's for him to go somewhere. That's what their price is gonna be. And the Chiefs don't have that in their cap right now. I'm sorry, I don't want to take away snaps from Karlaftis and Felix Uzama for Jadeveon Clowney at this point. That's just me personally. He can go be a mercenary somewhere else and go play for his 7th or 8th team. I don't even remember what team he's on now. But
Spotrac has him at $7.2 million, and that's more than I would pay. Certainly, it would have to be cheaper than that. It'd have to be a 1-year deal. I'd say 3 to 4 million with some incentives that might get him to 7, and he'd also have to realize, he's going to be coming off the bench. He's 31. He's not a starter anymore. So he'd have to realize that he's not playing as many snaps as he used to.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to realize that.
Almar with a little bit different question. How many draft picks should the Chiefs use for offense and defense? I mean, I can't say that I really have a concern one way or the other, Nick. I mean, obviously the Chiefs have gone both ways. They've had all defensive drafts. They've had virtually all offensive drafts. I mean, normally your classes are usually a little bit of mix of both, but I mean, I frankly, to me, I don't care. I just, especially with the way that this team's constituted right now, whereas I don't think that they have a huge need. I mean, they've got some long-term needs that they need to address on both sides of the ball. So I wouldn't be opposed if they came out with an interior offensive lineman. I think you always need defensive linemen, and they definitely need a defensive tackle. They certainly always take a shot at wide receiver and a corner. There's a chance the Chiefs, if they have enough draft picks this year, they might even take a chance on a developmental quarterback. I don't know. I mean, it's in the realm of possibility, but do you have a preference, Nick?
I'll give you everything that I would draft as I was in the Chiefs' shoes, and I'll show you why they need all the picks that they have. In an ideal world, you need a starting left tackle long term. Potentially, you're going to need at least one guard, whether that's going to be to replace Joe Thuney in the next year or to replace Trey Smith. You may want to have a backup center in case something goes wrong with Creed Humphrey, or if you're not going to pay him the following year, you need the guard and center to have time to develop. So that's 3 along the offensive line. You still want a young running back to pair with Pacheco because Pacheco's got 2 years left on his rookie deal, and you want to have another guy who's got 4 years, so they'll be up to speed by the time you got to make a decision on Pacheco. Quarterback-wise, you should always invest in quarterback if you can. So now at this point, I'm at 4. If I were in the Chiefs' shoes, I would want multiple wide receivers so that you continue to keep that cost number down, so you're not paying the $20 million per year that you would have to on a regular basis. So I'm now up to 6. You need an heir apparent to Travis Kelce long term. So that's the tight ends. So we're now at 7 on offense. Now we're going to go to the defensive side. You always want to keep rotating. You always want to keep drafting defensive ends when you can so that they can. So, again, you don't have to pay $120 million for a pass rusher to be on the team if you don't have to. So that's why you continually draft defensive end every year if you can. Since the Chiefs didn't get a long-term replacement for Chris Jones, they are now getting to pay him Aaron Donald's money. So that's where you're always searching for a 3-tech if you can. At this point, I think I'm up to 9 draft picks. And all those you're not getting in the top, you're not going to be able to achieve all those in your first 3 picks and where you would want that talent and that value overall. And then you're always trying to find corner, safety depth, and linebacker depth. So at this point, I think we're over 11 or 12. So she's got 5 or 6 picks, somewhere around there, maybe 6 or 7. But either way, you're always going to need something on your roster. You're always going to need something to improve. You're always going to need more than what you have. But you're having to do And Dorsey used to do this a ton, where Dorsey would draft whatever their biggest player was that was going to potentially hit the market the following year. He would always draft. So, for example, his first year, he drafted Eric Fisher because Brendan Albert was going to be a potential free agent the following year. So he could just replace that number with a cost-controlled guy. And then if you look at Dorsey each and every year, he always added a player to potentially financially replace the guy that was going to become available the following year in free agency. I think in 14, that was Ford for potentially Tamba. If Tamba didn't, it was Tamba or Houston. It was probably Justin Houston. And then Houston ended up getting $100 million anyways because D4 didn't get up to that level. And then I'd have to look at the following years. Marcus Peters, I know, was another one of those years. And then Chris Jones, they got when they traded out of the first round to the second round. And then you got some guy named Patrick Mahomes who was able to be cost control for a little bit. You didn't have that 2018 pick. 2019, you ended up trading it for Frank Clark, and McCole Hardman ended up being your top pick, but you still had to pay Tyreek anyways. And McCole never really replaced Tyreek Hill. So, and we could keep going. And Breland Speaks in 18 technically never replaced anybody, and was never really a good fit for the scheme they ended up transitioning to from Bob Sutton's scheme to Steve Spagnuolo's. So Breland Speaks was never going to have a chance at Steve Spagnuolo's scheme of being anything because he was completely drafted for a 3-4 scheme. So, and then, yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire you drafted because you had to move on from Kareem Hunt, and unfortunately that one never worked out. And so, I mean, you know, each year it's always something.
It is always something. Decimex had, I just butchered your poor name, Desi, but
we're still a big fan of yours, Desi.
Interesting theory here. I want to see what you think. With the estimated salary cap of $273.3 million in 2025, could reworking Joe Thuney and giving up the first rounder this year, Sneed, with the potential trade that he could get Justin Jefferson, be possible? I mean, if I'm the Vikings, I probably still turn that offer down. If 32 and Sneed, I probably turn it down. But I don't know if the Chiefs would be interested, honestly. I mean, as much as that has been speculated and, and connecting the Chiefs with big name receivers, I still feel like if the Chiefs wanted a big name receiver like that, they never would have traded Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, there's a lot of speculation that he's going to be the next wide receiver to get $30 million per year. Or in that
Not
ballpark.
what Brett Veach and Clark Hunt want to do.
But that is a speculation that somebody is going to have to pay him $30 million a year. So if you're doing that, you're at minimum, and you're in this scenario, this isn't me reporting, but in your scenario, you're going to have to give up multiple first for multiple years, or you're going to have to give up the same amount that the Chiefs did Tyreek Hill wise, which is going to be like a first, a second, a third, a fourth, maybe a fifth, and Sneed. and then you get the added bonus to pay $30 million per year on top of that. Yeah. So that's the reality of what you're doing with in that potential situation. So yeah, it's going to take a lot to get that done. Doesn't mean he wouldn't help the offense. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be a great player, but you're going to have to pay a serious price to get that done. And then all he does is kind of eliminate what you may or may not have paid Brown the following year. And then he's also going to, now that takes money away from one of the other guys you potentially were going to pay to keep among the Nick Bolton's, Trey Smith's, Creed Humphreys, Justin Reed's, Harrison Buckers of the world. And
I mean, I think
I'll be right back.
I haven't asked, Brett Veach to this specific question, but I will say that I think that there's I firmly think that if you ask Brett Veach, and I will ask him about this. I'm going to put on my list XMS. Gosh, I butchered it again. I apologize. I'll ask him about this because I have asked him a similar question about the cornerback position and just, his approach to it, and as far as his, willingness to put resources into that position. And obviously Brett Veach has shown, I mean, once upon a time, the reputation was that he didn't want to put any position, resources into the corner position. But the reality of it is that he just needed the right situation, and whether it was a draft pick or it's money, I mean, he just needs the right situation. I don't get the sense that Brett Veach has the philosophy that if there's two positions that you don't put money into in their late 20s, it's corner and receiver. That, instead of going out and paying a Tyreek Hill or a Justin Jefferson, you better draft your own and find them and develop them. And because you're right. I mean, if you're going out and getting a Justin Jefferson isn't really any different than, what the Chiefs did with Jawan Taylor, except Jawan Taylor was a lot cheaper, and your misses at that position are a lot safer. And paying a guy tackle, into his late 20s isn't as risky as paying a skill position player into their late 20s. So I think I feel like that their rationale for where they put their money sometimes makes sense. Does it always work out? No, but I just don't know that the Chiefs will ever have, and I say never because I think they will probably give a lot of money to Trent McDuffie to keep him if they can. But I just don't think that they're ever going to give away the farm to a receiver. And like I said, McDuffie might be the one exception, and he might be literally the only guy in the league that they'd be willing to pay a ton of money to at corner. Because it's a risky business. Paying corners and receivers into their late 20s is a risky proposition, Nick.
Yes, I can't dispute that.
If I'm going to pay anybody into their late 20s, it's not going to be a guy that relies on speed. That's all I'm saying.
Just like we're going to see how things go for Tyreek Hill over the next 2 years down in Miami, because he's starting to get to that point where the injuries are starting to occur a little bit more. And he's over $30 million. The Dolphins are starting to get up against on the cap on a regular basis. So this will be a big year for Tyreek to decide what he's going to be long term.
I'm just giving KY a salute for the earlier Florio knock. So job well done. I just want you to know I saw it, and I congratulate you, and I appreciate it. I'm on board. KC Chiefs, what is the comp for Hollywood in this year's draft class in case of injury? Xavier Worthy. I mean, Nick, you're more progressed on the draft class at this point than I am. I don't know if I could give you a good, who would you draft to back up Hollywood unless you're just even talking about, having somebody on the team that's already there, like signing a McCole Hardman to be your Hollywood backup.
Yes, Xavier would be the same in terms of size and speed. A guy that, because for example, like Malik Neighbors, who's going to go in the probably top 5, top 10, probably more than likely top 5, but I'll just say top 10 just to be safe. But like Neighbors is going to be like Jamar Chase. He's a lot like Jamar Chase, also comes from LSU, and he's going to be similar to him. And then, yeah, Worthy's probably going to be the closest to what you're thinking in terms of Hollywood. Like they're in the similar weight class coming out of college and everything. So yes, Xavier Worthy would be kind of the close comp of Hollywood.
Xavier Worthy is so tiny.
So was Brown coming out of Oklahoma.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And, and you and I were talking about Neighbors the other day, and I have just done nothing but hear about Neighbors the last few days. So
as you should.
Julia Gulia. Once again, I always love that name. With Andy no longer having a fullback and Patrick dinking and dunking, do you see any new things on the horizon? I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the Chiefs don't want the offense in 2024 to look like it did in 23. And I don't know that the fullback is a real big piece of it, but it is maybe in the sense that, you're bringing in an Irv Smith, to hopefully be a kind of piece that helps you get the ball a little bit further downfield. I mean, that's not a deep threat necessarily, but you're looking for people who can at least attack the intermediate part of the field too. And so that if you're Patrick Mahomes, you're not concentrating as much on having to throw the ball in space at the line of scrimmage and let guys work. I mean, that you can attack the downfield a little bit more. And I saw some of, Irv Smith highlights, especially some of his red zone work and everything. I mean, he's got the ability to do that. I mean, that's what I think you're hoping for, is that if you are going to get away from the fullback position, that you're going to have a tight end like that can do some things downfield for you. Any thoughts, Nick?
Oh, I didn't know I was in this party. Okay. Enjoying my lemonade over here. I think we'll see that we might see the tight end split out a little bit more since you have Irv Smith with Travis Kelce. So it may be sometimes where it actually is 12 personnel, but they're using the tight ends both like wide receivers, and they may motion them around and things of that nature to do that part of it. So maybe some creativity there. You're hoping you can use the screen game a little bit more this year, depending on what you have at running back and how healthy the offensive line is. And then more than anything else with Marquise Brown, as long as he can stay healthy, or if you add another speed receiver to pair with him on the field, that's going to determine how far you're going to keep both safeties back. So there should be a lot more room over the middle, a little bit more room on some of those out routes, on some of the flats passes, and that may be where you can kind of feed the running back more and keep the chains moving more so than last year, to where having one of those receiving running backs could be a nice little bonus addition. So, I mean, yeah, there's the threat of having speed over the top with Brown's going to open some things up. If they happen to go get somebody like Xavier Worthy and have two guys on both ends that defenses have to fear, that'll give them a ton of room over the middle and down in the flat. So, yeah, no, I mean, Andy's always got something cooked up, something new he's working with. Just the more speed he has, the better route runners he has, the more fun he's able to have with what he can put out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's all about, is just, having some more options that they can go to in specific situations, and they definitely need more of that. Let's see, I got lost on my list here, Nick.
Samuel should be next at 7:48.
Thank you. Looking at the timestamps as a wonder. There you go.
That's what I'm here for, Matt. Okay?
There you go. I know we're running ahead of schedule. We haven't even had to go lightning round yet. There you go. Ready. Samuel, who do you feel like at 32 if it were a wide receiver?
I don't think Brian Thomas is going to be there from LSU. So I'm fearful he's either going to end up with the Eagles or the Bills or maybe the Rams or somewhere around in that range, or maybe even the Cowboys. Who the heck knows? But, I mean, Brian Thomas is a guy that I really like and hope that the Chiefs have a chance to be able to get. I know Ladd from Georgia is somebody that is going to continually be mocked to the Chiefs. And then we'll see what happens with Worthy. With the time he ran, I know some people think he's going to be in the first round now. I know some people still think he's stuck in the second because of his size. But, I mean, that's obviously somebody that could be appealing to the Chiefs, that allows them to use Brown and Worthy's speed together for a year, but then have Worthy kind of learn behind Brown and then make whatever decision they need to make in that regard. So, and then we'll see with Adonis Mitchell from Texas, where he may end up being at, if he's going to go in the 20s, 30s, or in that 40 range. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's still pretty early, but I think you're going to see the quarterback market in the draft go pretty quick. I think the offensive tackles will be done by 2022 in terms of getting somebody of impact that the Chiefs may be interested in. I think there's going to be a lot of wide receivers that are going to go in the top 3 rounds. So there will be opportunities for the Chiefs to get a wide receiver no matter who they end up getting.
Yeah, and that's where I don't know. I probably kind of to a degree will feel like this at every position, but I feel like it especially at receiver. I mean, my at least superficial appreciation of the receiver position in this draft right now is that it is so deep that I feel like at 32, you are probably going to end up getting someone who is at receiver is probably a very worthy second round receiver. I mean, probably somebody who should be going in the middle of the second round, but you might find somebody in the third round that might be just as good. Maybe even the fourth round, who might be just as good, maybe just a little bit different. So I don't know. I mean, I fear with receiver, especially with the Chiefs, of drafting someone in the first round, that if they're not a first round caliber stud receiver, of giving them that pressure, because I think you even saw a little bit of this with Felix last year. And I think we definitely saw it with Clyde. I mean, if that's a ton of pressure to put on a kid, to come into Kansas City. And if that player is not up to, being a number one stud, and being at number 32, chances are you probably not. I just think that that's going to be probably too much. I mean, I almost feel like you're setting somebody up for failure. And I feel like at the same time, I mean, there's so much depth at that receiver position that I don't know once again, it depends on how the draft falls. If there's one of the best receivers in the draft is at 32, yeah, you take them. I mean, no matter what. But if you start getting into these guys who, that there's not a fine distinction between the second and third round receivers, I'm still going to take best available player. So if the receiver that I want is not there, I'm not taking a receiver. at 32. But I don't know that there's any. I mean, like I said, unless someone falls well below where they should be, I don't know if I want just anybody at receiver. It has to be the right player for me, and I'm not sure there's one. Like I said, unless somebody like Rome, falls down. No, or if the best receiver on the market is on the board is at 32, the best receiver in the draft, is available at 32, you take them. I just don't think that's going to happen, Nick. Poto, why not bring in Leonard Fournette to back up Isaiah? He should be cheap. He wouldn't be my flavor of back because I think you want somebody. I mean, to me, Isaiah's a power back. I know he's a little undersized, but he's more power back than speed back. So I just want somebody with a little more pop. It's been a few years since Fournette's had pop. Really had his trouble getting on the field last year in Buffalo, and it's been a couple of years since he had a big yards per carry. So I don't know if he'd be my flavor, Nick. How about you?
No, the wheels already fell off on that one.
I do fear that the wheels have fallen off.
You'd just be recreating the Ronald Jones situation all over again.
Well, we do not need that.
Just telling you the truth.
Let's see. Joe, a top-tier left tackle will allow Chiefs to open up offense a lot more. I mean, in theory, it would. I just don't know that there's a top-tier left tackle available unless the Chiefs find one in the draft, right, Nick?
I know a top-tier left tackle.
You're taking this for your Joe Alt segue. I like it.
It's not my fault. Somebody put it out there. Joe E decided for me to go on a Joe Alt rant. So here we are. Well, yes, Joe E, there is a left tackle that would be top tier. He happens to go by the name of Joe Alt from Notre Dame. He's probably going to go in the top 5. So the Chiefs are going to have to risk it all if they want to be able to get somebody his caliber to be able to protect Mahomes' blindside for the next decade. And then we don't have to talk about left tackle for 10 years, and you pay him on top of it. The unique ability of Joe Alt is he combines the new age athletic ability with the kick step he's got, with the speed that he's got, with the pulling ability he's got, the speed he's got to get to the second level, with the old era technique that his dad had with the Kansas City Chiefs, and a dying art form in some extents with the way that Joe Alt is able to properly protect where his hand placement is, the punch that he has, everything combined. Like, he is the best of both worlds from what 90 offensive lineman play was, along with what the athletic ability is that you need now. He combines both into a perfect world, and that's why he is going to be a fun player to watch for the next decade when he goes to a team like the Tennessee Titans or the Los Angeles Chargers or the New England Patriots or the New York Giants or somewhere that's going to make me sad to know that a player that good has to play for a franchise like that.
Gosh, if he goes to the Chargers, he's going to get hurt all the time. Nobody wants to see that.
How dare you say that about Joe Alt?
I'm not saying about Joe Alt. I'm saying about the Chargers. They just hurt everybody.
No, they don't hurt everybody. The Chargers' problem is that they draft players who have medical histories that are not good to begin with. And
they're surprised when they get hurt.
I don't know when they got hurt. Well, did you look at the injury report that you had? Because that linebacker, if your medical team did a good job, they'd find out that linebacker's got a projected degenerative knee condition that's going to happen for the next within 4 to 5 years. And you're like, I don't know why he's not practicing. Well, did you look at that medical report and the prediction that they gave on the medical report? That's the whole reason they have the combine up there, Los Angeles. For people that don't know, their medical team, some of the medical teams, when they red flag players for injury concerns, part of it is they're able to predict or project what the chance of re-injury is for certain injuries that they had in college or what they saw on some of the medical stuff that they do. So that's why some guys don't go on players' boards. For example, Trey Smith, the whole reason Trey Smith was available where he was is because of the lung scarring that he had from
and the blood clots. Yeah.
But he had some scarring, I believe, in the lung from the blood clots. So then that's why he fell, even though he was a second, third round talent, he fell to the 6th round because of that. So teams weren't willing to take that chance. And then the Chiefs took him late in the draft, and they got a steal that they may have to pay $20 million to, or somebody's going to pay $20 million per year to, as long as he can stay healthy and continue to perform at the level that I personally believe he will when he is healthy. So yeah, that's the Chargers' problem. the Chargers just ignore, like they think that mark that they have on the board that's for injury concerns is just a neat little symbol that just breaks up the board for it.
That's just poetry. I mean, Nick, I'm going to have to make a clip of that.
I got lemonade in me. That's what happened.
Okay, we are going to go lightning round here pretty soon. We might as well start it with Jesse. What's up with OBJ talks? Could that be a possibility?
No, thank you.
Are we going to do this again? OBJ fits into those categories like Patrick Peterson of players I feel like have been associated with the Chiefs so much. I could swear they actually played for the Chiefs already.
The Ravens made the Ravens kicked the tires last year. It didn't go well. That's why he's back in the market. Unfortunately, his best years have passed him by. That's just the reality.
Yeah, I mean I'm the same way. Again, I mean, if I'm going to get a receiver, I want it to be somebody young. I want it to be somebody that has got some juice left in him. I don't think that taking away snaps and giving it to OBJ and just hoping something works out, probably not the best strategy.
And if the Chiefs are wanting to double check on that, all they have to do is ask Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo how concerned they were about OBJ in the AFC Championship game, and they have their answer about, it's probably not. It's
a fair point. It's a very, very, very fair point.
They can get that analysis in the same building that they're in.
Now, I know you and I have had this conversation before. What would the Texans ask for Laramie Tunsil? I mean, a lot.
Well, that
more than you have.
That ship sailed last year. That's over. That's over with. That's not happening.
That is true. I mean, I think the cap number there would make it impossible. I mean, I said lightning round, and I didn't realize. I guess we're at the end of the question. So, I mean,
are you sure?
If there's anything I've missed here, so feel free. And get your questions in, folks, if there's something I've missed here. So, because Nick clearly wants to stick around a little bit longer before he goes to grocery shopping.
I actually did that yesterday, so I could give you more time.
Well, see, people, we got Nick here with free time, so I guess I went through the questions too fast tonight. I apologize. Let's see what else we got. We'll turn this into a question. Any tight end 3 with some receiving upside that is an upgrade over Bell? Whoever was on the field, it was essentially the Chiefs playing 10 on 11. Blake is, I think, near the end of his. Yeah, I think Blake is at the end of his career. But bless Blake Bell. But I mean, you've got Irv Smith. Anybody else you want, Nick?
No.
No free agents. No draft eligible tight ends you want.
Look, I mean, we're at a point now where, like we said, they got 5. Depending between 5 to 7 million in space right now. Like I wouldn't expect to see a lot of Chiefs news unless it's for vet minimum at this point. And then, I mean, until the L'Jarius Sneed thing gets resolved in whatever way it's going to be resolved, and if that takes all the way up till the draft, then you're not going to have to be trying to find a lot of Chiefs news at this point. So, to put it bluntly, L'Jarius Sneed and that cap number, yet again, is essentially holding the Chiefs hostage from being able to do anything that they want to. Just like Chris Jones' cap number last year held the Chiefs hostage from being able to do what they want to. So my thing is, if the Chiefs have a 2025 New Year's resolution, I hope it's not let a player's cap number hold you hostage in 2025. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm dreaming of.
That's a solid dream there, Nick. Desi coming back. What 2023 rookie breaks out in 24? Rice, skyrocket, or slump?
I gotta look at who. I don't even remember who the draft picks are.
Can't remember the draft picks are.
I've been watching wide receivers all day. I don't know. Let me look.
I still wish. I mean, I saw him mentioned in the comments. I still wish Keandre Coburn was around.
Yeah,
I liked Keandre.
No, I liked him, but yeah. I mean, look, you got options. You're hoping Shamari Connor can be the rookie that kind of steps up. I mean, you're hoping Juan Morris can be a dominant tackle no matter what side he's on. You're hoping Felix Uzama can become the pass rushing specialist that you want. And then Nick Jones had a promising training camp up until he broke his hand, and then he didn't get to see the field. So you have a lot of candidate options. So basically anybody not named Rice or probably BJ Thompson has a chance to potentially be that guy. Doesn't mean BJ Thompson won't be. I just think BJ Thompson's more of a role player and special teams performer is what his role is going to be on the roster until we see him take another step in training camp when the pads come on.
Yeah, and I mean, you're hoping to a degree, I guess, that Rasheed has a little bit more help this year, so he doesn't have to, carry the load like he kind of did at points last year. Because if Rasheed Rice has just 1,000-yard season, that's fine by me. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, especially if it means that Travis Kelce is, right where he is at 1,000-yard season. If Hollywood Brown, once again, new receivers in an Andy Reid system, I always try to give him a little bit of a bit of slack. So I will say healthy. I would put the over-under on Hollywood at maybe 700 yards. Anything over that, I would consider a great success. Anything less than that, probably a little disappointing. But that doesn't preclude it or be some other people in there. But I will say, I think that the one that the Chiefs hope is the biggest jump from their rookie season is definitely Felix. That's the guy that they really need to take that second-year jump. Because they needed to play. I mean, they will probably, with Charles and Minahue's injury situation, will probably need Felix to start week 1. So, whereas a lot of these other guys, Mari Connor, they can ask to be a third safety and to be that dime safety, but the same role he played last year, essentially. Nick Jones can get more playing time, but Felix, they need to be a starter. And Wanye too, but I think Felix is the one that you're really hoping is the big breakout player. And so we did get a bunch of more questions here, Nick. So Luttrell wants to know, how much is your Hy-Vee rewards?
I don't know what that is.
Nick, do you have any final thoughts on Felix on FAU?
I hope he performs really well this year. I don't know. He's going to get better against the run. And like we talked about, he's going to get better against the run. If he does that, he'll see the field a lot more. So this is the year where he's got to do that part of that. And then, hopefully he'll be out there enough to where he can show a pass rushing strategy more than just one rush move and put it together and be the first round pick that everybody hopes he's going to be and will continually ask us about, like he's Daniel Sorensen or Ben Neiman until he does.
Is there any comp for him? Anybody that you kind of remind you of, or is there a comp for you coming out of the draft that you're
coming out of the draft? He had a lot of Tamba in him, and I know he used to watch.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot we talked about Tamba.
He had a lot of Tamba Holly ability to him, so he had a lot. He had similar rush moves to Tamba coming out of Penn State, and I know when we asked him throughout the year, Tamba was the guy he watched as a kid from being from Lee Summit. So, you hope he's able to put it together. I know he's got a lot of pressure on him to put it together, and everybody will be watching what he does to make that happen.
Trevor wants to know, what's a position that you don't expect the Chiefs to draft, but ultimately they do?
Cornerback every year.
I probably say this every year, and so I'm thinking that this is, but I think I'm by Charlie Brown and Lucy in the football, Nick. I think this is the year that the Chiefs draft a developmental quarterback. Just some 5th rounder.
Hey, I'm all for it, but better get some of those other positions filled first.
C Baby the King. What percentage would you give the Chiefs to actually three-peat?
11. No.
11.
I have no idea. It
is a tough one. That's a tough one because
until we get to training camp, we get to see what they look like and see part of the preseason, and then see all that. You have no idea, man. There's hundreds of thousands of variables that are going to happen between now and then that are going to determine that, and then you're going to need good luck for players to stay healthy. You're going to need specific players to stay healthy. How long does it take Marquise Brown to get into sync with Patrick Mahomes? How long does it take Irv Smith Jr. to get into sync with the offense? How long does it take him to learn the offense? Can Rice maintain what he did or do better? And then, the list goes on and on. So, you need here's what I give you. At the end of the day, you need enough hungry players that haven't been to a Super Bowl mixed into the roster with guys who have been there, done that can help show them the way. And you need to have that certain level of hunger of wanting to get back. If you have enough of those guys collectively do that, and enough of those players that buy into what they're trying to do, and they have fun along the way, That is going to be the key ingredients to that. For anybody that's watched the Dynasty on Apple with the New England Patriots, especially there towards the end in the final episodes where you talk about how Brady, Gronk, Danny Amendola, those guys admitted that they weren't having fun anymore and that they'd grown tired of Bill Belichick, and that whenever he wrote a letter about a former president and that got out there, that kind of turned the locker room against him. And then he lost a lot of the team at that point, and how it crumbled over time, and how much Belichick didn't seem – the way the documentary painted it was that Belichick didn't like the power that he was continually – felt like he was getting taken away from him from Brady. When you have all those egos combined start to collide with one another, then those are when you start to lose that ability to do that. So whenever you have 53 people rowing in the same direction, going in the same manner, believing in the same thing, buying into the way that Andy Reid preaches to him, that Dave Merritt preaches to him, that Steve Spagnuolo preaches to him, that Matt Nagy does, that Dave Tobe does, and so on and so forth, and every position room, and they all collectively are buying into what they want to do and the road that they need to go to get there. They were able to do that last year despite the outside noise that they had from fans, from media members, from everybody combined, that they all stuck together, dug in, did what they had to, and went on that run in January when it mattered. All of that combined is what is going to determine that. So there isn't a number that you can quantify on it, except I guess you can say the number of 53.
I'll say a number. No, I mean, I, in one sense, I think, okay, well, the Chiefs have a 1 in 32 chance because there's 32 teams. Then I remember there's always 8 teams in the NFL that don't know what they're doing. So there's 8 teams that don't have a chance to win the NFL.
So let's do this. What teams do you think don't know what they're doing? I want that one.
Okay, this is my own personal belief, everybody, that at any given point there are 8 teams in the NFL who do not know what they're doing. Right now, I would put that group to include. Well, I don't think there's any about Tennessee Titans are close to like owning that group right now. I mean, they're getting ready to take over the title. Houston had it for a while, and Houston richly deserved it. I mean, Tennessee goes out and goes like 1 in 16 this year. They definitely deserve it. I think that's possible because they're going to be terrible. Tennessee for sure. I am going to put I think I have to put New England in there until they, pull their heads out. Right now, they're in that group. Arizona absolutely is in that group. Carolina, I mean, until that ownership changes, will forever be in that group. Washington is, even with the ownership change, I mean, I see no evidence of things getting a whole lot better there, because they're just going to have to blow up that entire organization, probably the stadium too, to fix that place. So that's 5. I mean, I don't know how. I'm kind of torn on the AFC West about if anybody deserves to be in the group. Okay. I mean, because Sean Payton, I trust. I don't trust anybody else in Denver, but I trust Sean Payton. Jim Harbaugh, I trust. I don't necessarily trust anybody else in Los Angeles. Okay. Antonio Pierce is a really good guy by all accounts. I don't trust anybody else in Las Vegas, but they won 8 games last year. I'm gonna put a pin in the AFC West. See if I can throw any one of them in there. So I'm at 5. Oh, the Giants, absolutely 6. Okay. I don't know if Seattle is there yet. Not having Pete Carroll will probably eventually land them there because they're going to slide back into that group. So I don't know if I can put them there. I didn't mention the Jets yet. Jets are 7. Yeah, they're absolutely in that group. And then, I mean, well, what am I saying? You got to put the Raiders in there. Raiders are one of the 8. So those are my 8 teams that absolutely cannot win and will not win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay. Are you want me to do this or what?
You can.
Okay.
You want to swap some teams out? Go for it.
No, I don't have teams I'm going to swap out. Carolina Panthers are the number 1 in the power rankings
right now. Yes, I would agree.
They have no idea what they're doing.
I think Tennessee's going to give them a run, but right now you're right. Carolina is number 1.
I don't think the Panthers have any idea what they're doing right now. I think they are a rudderless ship. And when you promote the general manager that was a part of the dumpster fire that already happened, Like that doesn't make sense. Even though he followed me on Twitter for a long time when he was a player personnel guy at multiple stops, I'm like, gee, I wonder why you're following me on here so you can keep tabs on the training camp reports.
And I just want to say, I mean, Brant Tillis, I respect the heck out of, and Brant Tillis is a great executive, and probably would be better as a general manager, and maybe will be the general manager in Carolina once, things get all fixed and everything like that. But I just tell you, the fact that he's reporting to the owner in addition to the GM and the coach, and all three of them reporting to the owner, is not good for the GM or the head coach.
No, because Brant's been a part of a winning organization and knows what it's supposed to look like.
Exactly. So if Brant's the one telling you, wait a minute, what the heck are you guys doing here? You're going to listen to Brant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Panthers are number one on my power rankings. Cardinals are pretty close, too. And part of that's just because their GM, he's awful.
Ownership's not great either.
Yeah. So that's always going to be a problem. I'm going to hold off on Washington. The Giants are a team right now that they made a lot of blunders last year that I don't think they're going to be able to dig themselves out of hole-wise. Like when you pay Daniel Jones the money that they did, like that sets you up for a lot of problems that I just don't see you digging out of. So that's their number one problem that they did. And like now they're going to have to go try to sneakily find the next quarterback that they want. We'll see on the Chicago Bears. I mean, Ryan Poles is trying his best, and a quarterback may do it, but I just don't think the head coach is the guy to get him there. The Saints are a mess in my book and have been since Sean Payton left, and I don't see the Saints being.
They're just going to go 500 every year.
Yeah, so the Saints, the Saints are that for me. If Tampa hadn't been able to get, if they hadn't been able to get Baker and Mike Evans back, I think they would have had some problems on the NFC or on the AFC side. I mean, the Patriots are going to have to go. They're going to have to draft their quarterback. This is the first thing that they got to do, and then they can kind of reestablish and reset who the heck they're going to be and what they're going to be in the post Belichick era and kind of redefine themselves. So that's going to take time. So they're at least trending in a new direction. So I'm not going to knock them on that part. Like you said, the Titans, we'll see on them. I mean, we'll see what Callahan's able to do and what him and his dad are able to kind of put together. The Jets are going to be underachieving no matter how many aging star veterans they bring in to play offensive tackle to protect Aaron Rodgers. They're going to continue to have that issue, and Aaron Rodgers is their leader. I don't think it's going to work out for him. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett's a good offensive coordinator, and his scheme is basically based around whatever general manager Aaron Rodgers wants done. So if Rodgers gets hurt again at his age, then that's not going to work out well for him. I don't think they have the right GM there. And having to dig out of Russell Wilson's contract is going to be a problem for him. The fact you brought in Russell Wilson to kind of help with the overall appeal of the ownership that was buying them, and that's what you essentially sacrificed what's going to nearly be 3 years on your roster for money-wise before you can even turn it around. Like that just kind of speaks volumes to the rudderlessness there. The Raiders are very proud of beating the Chiefs on Christmas Day. They seem to still forget that the Chiefs went on to go win the Super Bowl anyways. And they seem to think that they're the team that's going to take the Chiefs down this year. So that's why I am going to have a unique rooting ability this year when the Chiefs play the Raiders. Just completely embarrass them and take their souls once and for all. Because they got Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback. So good luck with that one.
So I'm going to assume that means that you were going to say that the Raiders cannot compete with the Chiefs in the West this year.
They're going to try, and they're going to talk it up all year long, and they may be on Hard Knocks or whatever because Antonio Pierce is going to say all those wonderful things about it. But, I mean, the Chargers are a couple years away, but they're going to be a tough physical team. They're going to give some problems short-term, long-term. So that's going to be interesting to watch that down the road. The Broncos, who knows what they're going to do at quarterback here in the draft. And Sean Payton's going to need the time to put it together. And then, in terms of AFC West, Chiefs just got to be themselves, and they'll win the division again this year as long as they can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, even with the dramatic turnover that the Chargers are going to go through, I mean, I think that they have the best combination of head coach and quarterback. So they got a chance to beat the second best team in the AFC West this year.
Mhm.
I still don't think that I think the Raiders are still. I don't know if I see them moving forward. I mean, they might move sideways. They might take a step back. The Broncos, in theory, should take a step forward, but I'm not sold on that. I mean, not sure what's going to happen there. I mean, I feel like I should trust the Chargers the most, but like you're right. I mean, they are going to go through a lot of changes, and they got a ways to go to kind of fix things. Justin, quick fire. Sorry, lightning round. Justin needs to know your favorite Chris Farley movie.
I mean, he was only in where he starred. The only three that he really started in was starting Tommy Boy, starting Black Sheep, and then Beverly Hills Ninja, if I remember correctly, before he passed away.
So, but Tommy Boy's your favorite?
It's going to have to be of those three. I mean, because I know he was in Airheads, and I know he was in Coneheads, and then I know obviously on SNL, and then he had my favorite cameo of him though is going to be when he was the bus driver on Billy Madison. that one's the perfect one. But yeah, no, in terms of starring, yeah, Tommy Boy, that was kind of the one.
There you go. Brandon, no more Oladokin. I think I'm probably the self-professed biggest Chris Oladokin fan in Kansas City. So no, I mean my solution would be, if you're drafting a developmental quarterback, is that your three quarterbacks are Mahomes, Oladokin, and whomever you draft. I still think that Andy Reid's going to want to have a veteran around, because I think the Chiefs' philosophy is that even if Patrick Mahomes gets hurt for a month, they would rather have a veteran that could keep them 2-2, keep the ship right, give them a chance to compete every week, rather than run the risk of going 0-4 and just playing themselves out of a playoff spot when, that might just be what keeps them out of the playoffs. And then if Mahomes is healthy again, you can win it all, because it doesn't really matter. I mean, at some point, Nick, I think you almost just even wonder what would happen if the Chiefs just put Patrick Mahomes in bubble wrap for a couple of months and brought him out in October, November. But no, I'm a big Chris Oladokin fan. I think he's a good young guy. Might not have a tremendous amount of upside, but I think he could be a decent backup to have around. But I could be the only one that thinks that. Nick says lightning round.
How'd you know?
Desi, bringing this because Brandon asked about this earlier, and it wasn't that I didn't want to talk about Brandon. It was just that mostly I just completely forgot to click on the question. But if the 3/8% sales tax vote fails in April, did the Chiefs move to Johnson County? I really don't know. And Brandon was asking me about the overall. I will say, I mean, part of it is that I am trying to remain somewhat neutral on this, because I am covering this as a story. So I feel a little awkward about, telling you what I think about it, especially because I don't live in Jackson County, so I'm not going to be able to vote on it. Nobody's paying me for my endorsement one way or the other. So I guess if somebody wants to pay me for my endorsement, I'd consider it, Nick, if that was the way I was going to vote, but I don't think anybody's going to do that. I mean, you guys in Jackson County will have to decide for yourselves. I mean, I don't know. And if I lived in Jackson County, I don't know how I would vote for it. I mean, I want the Chiefs and the Royals to stay in Kansas City, bottom line. So if this is what it takes to keep them in Kansas City, that probably speaks for itself right there. What will happen to these two teams if this vote fails, I think is definitely one of the questions that needs to be asked, because I don't feel like that we've gotten a really satisfactory answer to it. I think the Chiefs, when asked about it, have given a fairly perfunctory answer that I'm not sure is complete. I'm not sure that the Royals have really even given much of an answer. So, I mean, without tipping my hand too much, I can tell you the next time I see Clark Hunt, the next time I ask Mark Donovan, this is exactly the question I'm going to ask them. I might even ask Andy Reid if I see him, because people in this organization, I need to know. I want to know, because they haven't really said what their plan is. And to a degree, maybe it's that they don't have a plan. And if that's the case, tell us that. But that's a question that I do want answered, because I think at this point it's all just conjecture. And I don't know if you feel any differently, Nick.
I mean, Kevin Holmes had a one-on-one with Mark Donovan on our air a couple weeks ago, and I know Mark Donovan spoke yesterday. And I don't know if Johnson County specifically has been asked, but I know Mark Donovan's been asked about it multiple times. about if they would leave Kansas City. But when you ask the question that way, that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So there's other ways the question is going to need to be asked in the weeks ahead if they're going to be available to the media before the vote occurs. And then we'll see what Jackson County voters seem to think about it and what their preference is on it, about if they want to continue the tax that they already have or if they would elect for that to potentially go in another realm. And then if it does not pass, if the Chiefs want to try something different on a different ballot, or what they want to do or what they want to explore if it doesn't work out, then those are all questions that I think people would like to hear answers to. It's just you're in a difficult spot right now to where part of it is with the Royals potentially getting a new stadium in Jackson County with part of this, with this sales tax vote, then you're putting two franchises together. The Chiefs, let's be honest, the Chiefs are the more popular option. The Chiefs are the ones that are going to be driving this vote for the most part. So it's just I don't know. It's an interesting situation that I'm interested to see how fans vote for it and what the plans become, either yes or no on it. And is there any changes to stadium renderings or stuff like that that would come from it? And so, I mean, yeah, I think it's all up in the air right now. So I don't personally know one way or another what will or won't happen.
That's, I think, pretty much where we are. Chiefs Kingdom, who is on your NFL offensive lineman Rushmore, Nick? Is that too hard of a question?
I mean, there's a lot.
Kind of is for me.
There's a lot of people I would enjoy putting on there. Selfishly at left tackle, I'm always going to love Willie Roaf.
Yes.
But Anthony Munoz is another phenomenal guy. Orlando Pace was a very talented tackle. So you can put any of those three at left tackle. Left guard, Larry Allen was probably one of the strongest human beings I ever saw play tackle. Biasly, center-wise, I mean, I could put Casey Wigman in there. That would be more biased just because of how he was athletically. And he paired really well with that Chiefs team overall. But, I mean, in terms of centers, Mike Webster was one of the best that probably ever played, whether it was with the Chiefs or Steelers. And then right guard, obviously, Will Shields was one of the standards back then. And you think back to the early 2000s when he buried Ray Lewis on Monday Night Football where they were mic'd up and everything. And that was one of my favorite players to watch. And then right tackle wise, boy, I mean, I always loved watching Mitchell Schwartz play. He was an underrated technician at right tackle. But I'm sure there's Hall of Famers I'm not thinking of right now that were just as good right tackles in the league that I would have to go back and look in terms of Rushmore.
Oh, I'm trying to remember because isn't what's his face? There's only one right tackle in the Hall of Fame, right? If I'm not mistaken. I could be crazy. Maybe there's more, but you know, I'm kind of you know what? I mean, I'm kind of with you because I mean, Larry Allen, yes, is like remarkably all time, pretty much the best at that spot. I will forever, you know, favor Willie Roaf and Will Shields, not because they were Chiefs, but that absolutely helps my equation. And yeah, I was gonna say Webster before you did. Mike Webster was absolutely hands down, I think, the absolute best. And I just love Mitch Schwartz too much that after you mentioned his name, I don't care. I can't think of anybody else I just want Mitch Schwartz now to be on that team. So doesn't matter if he's the best one. He's my guy.
Because I mean, Russ Grimm was a really great guard for Washington and a great coach. Walter Jones was a good tackle for the Seahawks. Larry Little was a good guard. Bruce Matthews played all three spots. Kevin Mawai was a really good center. Mike Munchak was a really good guard that also ended up being a great coach. Jonathan Ogden from the Ravens was a great tackle. Art Shell was a great tackle. Yeah, and then I forgot about Gary Zimmerman that was with the Broncos. He was really good too. So, yeah, in terms of offensive linemen, I mean, for the most part, in terms of guys that I got to watch, those were my favorites to watch play the game.
All right, we got 3 more we'll get through, and then we're out of here. Brandon, were you surprised that Hollywood turned down maybe more money for a chance at the Super Bowl? Honestly, no. I'm not surprised at either way when things go that direction. I'm not surprised when players take more money. Um, I sometimes might get surprised if a player who's never won a ring is in their 30s and they take more money rather than a chance at a ring, but I will never be surprised one way or the other. If a young guy goes for money and takes the bag, not surprised. If a guy wants to play for less money and to go get a ring, not surprised.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Stall for a second, Matt. I forgot something that I got reminded in the chat section.
Uh-oh.
Tap dance for me.
Okay, I can do that. All right, I'll tap dance for Nick while he's gone, because that will give me a chance to go to KY's question about Gabbert as the veteran backup quarterback. I'm kind of surprised that the Chiefs haven't signed him yet, if that's the plan, and I've no reason to believe that's not the plan at this point. And maybe even Blaine, could be come back late. Really, there's no impetus to really get something done. I would even say May, because that's when the Chiefs will really get back into town and be ready to get on the field for workouts. If you were going to be the backup quarterback, obviously it would be great to be able to get your head into the playbook right now. I'm still working under the assumption that he'll be back, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs went a different direction. The only thing that would surprise me if the Chiefs went a different direction is that quarterback wasn't already signed, or that there wasn't some smoke that there was somebody there. That's why, it hasn't, necessarily, out of the realm of possibility to me that the Chiefs do go with 2 younger developmental quarterbacks behind Mahomes. Like I said, I like Chris Oladokun. If they've found a guy that they really like as a third quarterback, Brett Veach kind of talked about, the idea that they wouldn't mind having a backup behind Mahomes who could run quarterback sneaks or run some plays that they don't want to expose Mahomes to. And honestly, some of those read option plays that they ran during the Super Bowl were in that category. So we'll see what happens. But Nick is back.
Matt, can you bring up the question for 836 if you're done?
Excellent, because this was one of the final 3 questions.
Okay.
So, yes.
What do you think the flavor would be, Matt? Have you had the recent flavor?
I have not. I did not get the 49ers tiers. I did see the Eagles tiers.
Mm-hmm. Did you have either of them?
I did not, because neither one of them really my flavor.
Not your flavor. What?
I'm trying to remember what I can't remember. Was it because didn't the Eagles one have some mint or something in it?
It tasted like a sugar cookie.
Was that what it's? I thought it had some. Well, if that was the case, I should have gotten some, but I guess everybody must have beaten me to the. But then I saw the 49ers tiers, and I was thinking it just wasn't my jam. But
do you know what the flavor was for it?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, Matt, it is a salted caramel.
See, that doesn't sound awful. So I guess I should have tried that.
Yeah, it's an IV.
Maybe I saw the Big Red out there, because I think the Big Red is some flavor I did not like.
Yeah, that one was out recently.
Yeah, that may have been the one that I saw, because the 49ers, that salted caramel would have interested me.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar cookie would interest me. So
these tears sure are delicious.
Tears. So what will be the three-peat flavor?
Well, the question is, who would be in the Super Bowl?
Exactly.
I don't know. So somebody's got to help us either in the comment section or Matt. Who do you think's going to be? Who do you think would hypothetically be the opponent in the Super Bowl?
My safest bet would be.
That's where they get the color of their flavor.
My safest bet would be the 49ers again.
I don't know. I think the ship's going to fall apart here.
Kind of like the Eagles did after they missed their shot.
So we got Lions tiers is the first one.
I still, as bad as it kind of got, with America versus the Chiefs with the 49ers, if the Lions make a Super Bowl against the Chiefs, it will absolutely be Chiefs versus America. Mm-hmm. It's literally everybody will be rooting for the Lions. It's not a Chiefs fan.
Well, man, I don't know. But I know the Niners tier sure was delicious.
It sure was delicious. All right. Well, now you know.
We got the Matt Nagy question here again, so you probably popped that.
Got the Matt Nagy. How do you feel about Matt Nagy? We'll finish off there. How do you feel about Matt Nagy as the OC?
He's got another Super Bowl ring. His Super Bowl ring as the offensive coordinator.
He's got that.
This will be Brandon.
Cowboys tears.
I think Cowboys tears. Cowboys aren't going to make it past. It's Mike McCarthy, man. Don't worry, he'll stubble his.
There's a holdback.
He's going to be like that guy in the office with the pan of chili. That's just
that is the Cowboys. You're right.
Well, then that's the Cowboys. The Cowboys made a big old thing of chili, and they fell in the batch of chili before they made it to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, look, with Matt Nagy, I mean, he hasn't had the full complement of receivers right now, so we'll see what they're able to execute this year. But I mean, I don't know what else you want. They won a Super Bowl.
Well, and we go back to it. I mean, let's be real. Andy Reid's the offensive coordinator of this team, so Matt Nagy's just a good guy to have around and give you advice. I mean, and see some things. I mean, everything on this offense eventually falls on Andy Reid. So if you're not happy with the play calling, if you're not happy with the execution, you're not happy with the performance, blaming Matt Nagy for that is kind of like blaming the weatherman for the clouds coming out tomorrow. It's blaming Mick Schaefer because the Royals lost. I
know is is they did something right. Otherwise, I wouldn't have these Niners tears right now.
There you go. That's right. Matt Nagy did something right. So, all right. Well, that is it for us for tonight. Appreciate you all joining us. Appreciate you getting all of the 49ers tears that you can. I'll be back this week. If anything happens, if the Chiefs do anything, especially if anything breaks on the L'Jarius Sneed front, you will see me popping up here, and we'll be discussing that live. Nick and I will obviously be back on Sunday for 41 is the mic, which if you're not subscribed already to the podcast and getting it, frankly, you should probably get it on the YouTube version as well as the audio version, because when you watch the YouTube version, you might see me fall asleep sometimes during the podcast.
Yeah, dude, you got people knows the comment section on YouTube.
Yes. All I can say is I had an industrial strength case of insomnia over the weekend, and I woke up in time to ask Nick the next question. So
don't worry, I changed the inflection of my voice. You getting tired tells me that I can do books on tape. So I found a new career path from that podcast, and I appreciate that.
It had nothing to do with you, Nick. That had nothing to do with you.
With my cold being heavier on that day, or sinuses, or whatever the heck it is, and it's still happening. It gave my voice a deeper, soothing tone. So
that was the Tylenol PM that I took on Saturday night that didn't work until 4 a.m. rather, kicking it again. So.
Matt, at least you know that it works.
So there you go. That's the reason to watch. And I took I said I had a nap before the live Q&A tonight. I didn't actually have a nap. I mean, I'm just naturally this exciting and everything, but I will make sure I will have a good night's sleep. Yeah, it's a darn time change, Nick. That's what it was.
Well, Matt, either way, we got to wrap this up, because I got to go invest in my 401k before 9 o'clock. Some people call it lottery tickets. I call it investing in a 401k.
That's how we know. You will absolutely know one day if Nick has won the lottery, because Nick will not be found anywhere but just doing Chiefs coverage.
You won't even know then, because I won't say anything.
No, he might have a piece of ownership of the team, but that's the only way you'd know.
Dude, they're never going to give me ownership of the team if I did have the money.
I still want to see it happen.
I got like 9 minutes to go invest in my 401k.
Take care, everybody. We will see you for sure on Sunday, and next week back on the Q&A. Take care, everybody.